10 years after Fred MacMurray did Double Indemnity, and he kind of, a couple years before he did Apartment, this is Pushover, directed by Richard Quinn. Also, this gets highly celebrated as the film debut of Kim Novak. And this is the first time Kyle's watched it, and it'd be interesting what they have to say. So let's talk about one of my personal favorites, Pushover.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
Yes, of course. I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for finding us. And for loyal fans, thank you for continuing to support the show. There's another way you can support the show. Hit the like and subscribe button. It's a little button down there, and it's a little thing you can do, and it's a big thing for us. Hey, you want to see me in person and talk movies? I will be at SpringCon next month, May 18th. Check out the website for opportunities to get tickets early. There is a discount. Also, if you bring a non-perishable food item to the event, you get $1 off your ticket as well. So come see me. I'll be selling my artworks, and I'd love to talk movies with you as well. Before I begin our talk about Pushover, we're members of Minnesota Film Critics Alliance. Check out that webpage for critic reviews as well as ours. And today we're talking about, from 1954, Pushover.
All right. When undercover cop Paul Sheridan falls for Lana, the girlfriend of a criminal, she corrupts him, and he wants to get his hand on a fortune of stolen bank money. During a lengthy stakeout, he has to play both sides in order to survive and hopefully make off with the cash and Lana.
Okay, prior to making this film, Richard Quinn was a vaudeville actor and also kind of a stuntman, and just kind of fell into directing just to stay into the business. But also, once he became a director, actually became an accomplished director. He wasn't really a standout phenomenon, but he was accomplished and got a lot of good movies done. I think the success of Babes on Broadway brought him out. He did a lot of musicals and comedies. That's what he really enjoyed. But also he did a lot of film noirs, like Driving the Crooked Road in this movie, which he overly done with noir. After this he would go do, I think it was How to Kill Your Wife. No, it's not How to Kill Your Wife. It's How to Murder a Millionaire. And then a couple of other movies. This is when he signed a contract with Columbia for a 7-picture deal, and I think this is the third part of the deal. So with that, and he's handed this Pushover, you're going to see a lot of things that were lifted from other noirs, as well as kind of almost the familiar, so overly familiar tropes of noirs that I think got ill-fated. A lot of critics at the time came out and really panned it because it's something that you see, it was so familiar at the time, prior to 44 with a big explosion of noirs. And 10 years after, this kind of a trope, the style of noir, was so codified.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, but at the same time, there's something to be said about this film and how it does basically give you the recipe for a film noir.
Yes.
Without actually really trying anything. You're following the recipe, you're not throwing in new spices. But at the same time, with doing that with really accomplished actors, with a solid enough script, with what I think to be some pretty solid directing as well. Yeah. You actually have a film that, while it does play by all the numbers, it mostly works. Yeah. It's kind of surprising because whenever a plot point came up in the film, I was like, of course you're going to do that. And then they did it, and I was like, but it works.
If you take this dialogue out in the real world, it sounds so stupid.
Yeah.
But you put in the movie, it sounds so hard-boiled. Right, you're right.
But let's be honest, that's what a lot of the overworked kind of intensity of film noir. If you take any of that dialogue out of any of those films, someone's going to think you're just a little bit hardcore.
Right. I think for somebody who never took any acting classes, it just throw it into a camera. Kim Novak does it really well.
Oh yeah. I can see why she continued on. That much is certain.
Yeah. And if you haven't seen Pushover yet, Fred MacMurray's character Paul and then Kim Novak's character Lona, they play this like they don't really know if they're expecting genuine feelings for each other or they're both getting played. I love that about noirs, especially good noirs. You don't know if you're really falling for me, I'm really doing this, or are you really hooking me for this?
Yeah.
And you don't really know to the very end, of course.
Yeah, and a good chunk of them do tend to have the okay, so the chick's going to betray him. Like, you go into it and you're like, well, that's going to happen. This one does convince you enough throughout the film that I still didn't know near the end of it how it was going to play out, which is, again, is a solid point of, I know it's doing the same thing as a lot of these other kinds of films, but when you do it well enough, you're still making me question things at the end. Honestly, I think the only scene that absolutely fails is the finale scene. I just don't think it was as heightened of a finale,
right?
As heightened of a climax as it could have been, because it's doing such a good slow burn buildup as the movie goes on, where you're questioning how he's going to get out of the next predicament. And when it gets to the big finale, it's kind of like, but we got to end it really quick. And then it just runs to the end so quickly that the rest of the film, again, just talking about Abigail recently as well, fantastic journey, a little bit of a middling ending.
I think primary to the ending being so cut off-ish is because of Columbia's, remember, its contract written that no more than 90 minutes.
Yep.
And we're not going to do it. You have to cut every movie is going to be down to 90 minutes. We talked about that with even up to the last picture show. They still had that 90-minute thing.
Yep.
And that's another thing with Columbia Pictures. It's like, I think the ending was just like, what? Okay. All right.
Yeah. And, looking up more about Roy Higgins, who was Huggins, who was the screenwriter of the film, you can kind of understand the speed at which he gets to the finale, because, of course, he helped create The Fugitive, and he helped create Rockford Files and Maverick, and like a number of like major series where like you always did kind of have quick endings in a lot of those shows because you got to get to the next episode. Like, you got to leave them wanting enough to come back next week. And so you can see the TV writer within him, and you can also see the ability to circumvent traditional tropes in an interesting way.
Also, round up the cast is not just Kim Novak and Fred MacMurray. You also have Dorothy.
Is it?
Murray,
I'm blanking on her name.
She's a supporting actress, but she would win Best Actress in Written in the Wind 2 years later. You also have, if you catch Christmas Vacation, one of the dads, E.G. Marshall's in this. Who's doing very
and I noticed the little lights were not twinkling here either.
Right. He's very staunch. He's very. The casting for this is perfect because he just like, all right, get out there and do your job and make sure he doesn't screw up this time.
Yep.
You can understand that.
E.G. Marshall was very capable at giving exposition, giving it quick, fast, and without you really realizing that you're just intaking a lot of information really quickly.
But it is one of the most pleasing about this is not so much the right, but the aesthetic is so well codified and marginalized. They really got it good. With everything as a shadow. Even when the stakeout, it's all drooped in just shadows and everything. I really love the aesthetic for this movie. Sometimes even more than the story itself.
Yeah, and I think, again, it's surrounded well. It's got great writing as far as it goes. And I think one thing I want to call out is definitely the editing, because I do think that for all the movie, it does not traverse the world in 89 minutes, no. But what it does, it feels like it's constantly moving to the next scene. It's constantly bringing us on the journey. And I never looked at my watch. I never really checked to see how much time was left in this one, because it just was like, nope, we're moving. We're going along here. Nothing's stopping. There's no scene that wastes time. And then you notice that it's editor Jerome Thomas who did things like Shock Corridor and Naked Kiss. You
right. Thanks for calling out. I have it in my notes and I forgot. I can't read writing today. But thanks for calling that out. Yeah, and he had that sense of tension before we go. That the walls are closing in, but it doesn't give that speed. You just get that slowly. His world is gonna. Fred MacMurray's character. The world is coming.
That's where I think it does stand out there too, because then we understand that Paul is in danger, but we're always kind of convinced that he can get himself out of it. Right, and that's not always the case in some noir films. Sometimes it's everything's closing around you, and and you say yourself, you're doomed. And I don't know that I ever really felt 100% that he was doomed.
No, you're right. And a lot of times those characters are really stupid. They fall into the trap, and they don't even know that they're falling into it. Paul kind of senses that he's being trapped, and you get that sense. I do like this intro of the movie. I always forget. I really enjoy the intro, the whole bank robbing scene.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
It's
not something I think about, but yeah, you're right.
But it gives that pacing. It fits the title cards. All of a sudden, you see the bad guy sit in the chair like this. Okay, time for more title cards, right? Yeah. And you don't have to pay attention to it. You just have to feel of it to understand that that's the catalyst for the whole story as well.
Yeah, that may be the one scene for me that just kind of brushed past, because I knew what was happening, and as soon as we got the introduction of MacMurray and Novak, then it was like, oh, this is an interesting play on here. And 89-minute film, this is what I say when I say you can tell the same story that's been told before. In fact, every story's been told before. This is how you tell it. And I think there's just enough here that distinguishes itself. consistently from a lot of the other noir films that you don't really feel like you've seen the story before, even though you very much have.
Right, yeah. So what do you think of our take on Pushover? I know a lot of film noir fans talk about this one, but outside the film noir fans, I don't know that a lot of people talk about it.
Well, and it's hard to find. You mentioned yourself it was on Tubi when we watched it, but it also seemed like it was getting taken off Tubi.
Right.
And I don't see any physical media releases for it floating around like really popular ones. So it's a hidden gem. You might be able to catch it on Tubi or maybe YouTube, but like who knows if it'll be there tomorrow. One other thing I wanted to make a note of, Nick, because I thought it was really funny, is, we went on a kick for a while there where we were covering films called Night Watch. And I didn't realize until, looking up this film afterwards that it's partially based on a book called The Night Watch.
Shut up!
So we've hit it again. If you've been waiting, if you've been playing the drinking game at home, take a shot whenever we do a Night Watch. This is it. Drink responsibly. But there you go. It's also based on something called Rafferty as well. So maybe we'll start a new thing where we'll do films based Rafferty.
Yeah. If you want to really, what's the old joke? If you want real originality, base your story in 2 different stories.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Put them in a shredder and just hit frappe. Thanks for joining us for this. And yeah, let us know down below your thoughts on Pushover and what's the next Night Watch we should cover. There's a remake of the one, or that one was a remake from the 90s.
Oh, the Ewan McGregor one?
Yeah, and the one from the 90s that it was a remake.
We never did the original of the Ewan McGregor one.
Yeah, and the original is getting a sequel this year. So we got more Night Watch on the horizon, baby.
We need an offshoot channel.
Kyle and Nick talk Night Watch.
We need a sub-channel to talk about Night Watches. Right.
Thank you guys for joining us so very much.
You
can find all of my film reviews over at goatfilmreviews.com.
Really, thank you a lot. We really appreciate you guys, and keep the conversation going. I love to talk to filmmakers and on the comments down below. So yeah, keep the conversation going. So you can find my show, the St. Paul Filmcast, anywhere you find podcasts.